Hi, I'm Liz for KelownaNow, and I'm here with Shelley, the BC NDP candidate for Kelowna-West, and that by-election is coming up February 14th. So we've got Shelley in here, and we've got 10 minutes, and Shelley's going to cover as much as she can in that time over the various topics. You ready?
I am.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
All right, so let's jump right in. So first of all, housing. Kelowna has a 0.2% vacancy rate. The average price of a home is $500,000 or more, and the average price of rent is over $1,000 now. So how do you get new home buyers into the market, and what's the solution to providing more rental options that are affordable?
I've been having this conversation with a lot of people in my community on a lot of doorsteps. I just recently had a conversation with somebody talking about an increase in the value of their home and recognizing that even if they were working in the height of their sort of income earning years, would not be able to afford to buy that home they are currently living in. So we are in really a crisis situation, and we recognize that. We had a previous provincial government who was ignoring those issues. So we're really committed to making a difference in the lives of people in British Columbia and in Kelowna-West around affordability, but housing in particular. So it starts with the creation of 114,000 affordable housing units. And again, we're looking under a range of models. That also includes supportive social housing to address what people are seeing as a housing homelessness crisis on the streets of our city. That's certainly tied in with the overdose crisis, which I imagine we'll touch on a little bit. So those, it's the issues in our community.
It's true.
And so it's a significant piece, and obviously that involves additional support, other issues as well. When it comes to rental housing, there's a numbers of policy levers as a provincial government we can be looking at. The first is trying to ensure that rents do not skyrocket, which is really what we were seeing happening. And so we're closing loopholes that allow unscrupulous landlords to just jack up rents. So I think that's certainly a key piece. And within the broader housing market, we know the role of speculation has played, and certainly driving up housing costs. That's both domestic as well as foreign speculators. So what we're looking at a number of tools, and there are a number of tools in our toolbox as far as that's concerned. We recognize that speculation and stopping that gets some bad actors out of the real estate market immediately, and that has an impact. So those are some of the ways we're trying to tackle what is a significant and growing issue of concern.
Okay. The opioid crisis is affecting all ages and demographics. Many overdose deaths are happening behind closed doors, and first responder services are overworked. What should be done? And we've just had numbers come out this week.
So my background in working in the nonprofit sector, providing services around housing, homelessness, mental health, and addiction, I am deeply saddened by what I see in my community, and there's a number of things certainly we can be doing, and as a BC NDP government we are doing. The first thing is we developed a standalone ministry of mental health and addiction. So this most serious crisis in mental health issues gets the attention, the focused attention that it deserves. We are looking at moving on what I talk about as a 4 pillars approach. What that includes is enforcement, which is an important piece of it. So what role the police can be doing to end drug supplies, improving public safety in the streets of our city, and issues related to that. Prevention, obviously being key. How are we educating people? How are we preventing people from becoming addicted to these most serious drugs to begin with? Treatment and treatment facilities, and we're definitely going to see a lot of that rolling out through the NDP government over the next little while. But it's how we're using existing facilities creatively, including the Riverview site in Vancouver. So that's an important piece. And harm reduction. So harm reduction is is something that's commonly misunderstood. It's an incredibly important piece of the solution, and it's what we're seeing in the Cornerstone Shelter downtown, where people are recognizing that people are actively engaged in addiction, and trying to meet with them where they're at, first point of contact, and bring people into a system of services where they can get the help and support that they need to end their addiction. And so there's a number of things we need to be doing, and first and foremost around some of that is talking to people who are affected, and my heart goes out to the families, to the friends of those who have lost their lives. I've known 15 people in this community. Personally, 15 people through my work in the nonprofit sector who have died. I am terrified day to day to learn who has died next. Any loss of life in our community is unacceptable, and we need to be pushing and firing on all cylinders to address this.
Minimum wage is the next question here. The BC government plans to implement a $15 an hour minimum wage. Do you support this? Would you implement it sooner or later?
Well, I think, again, this is tied into issues of affordability and housing in our community. We know that living wage is certainly well beyond $15 in our community, but it's a heck of a good start. So what the BC NDP government has done is a Fair Wage Commission. We're really trying to take the politics out of this, right? And really have the important people, business leaders in our community, people impacted by adjustments within the minimum wage, have them at the table to talk about the issue and come up with a plan of how we transition towards $15 an hour, and recognizing people in our community are struggling right now. We need to move on these things as quickly as possible while still being mindful that there is an impact to businesses. So from our perspective, when it comes to other sort of cost reductions around MSP, a reduction in the corporate rate for small businesses, all those things help businesses absorb some of these costs. And I really talk to a lot of employers who are really concerned. They care about their staff. They're invested in these people, and they want to make sure that they're doing right by people. And we just want to help facilitate that in the right way.
Okay. So we're running low on time here.
Well,
that's okay. You choose whatever answers you want to spend more time on.
Thanks.
So healthcare is what we're talking about here. KGH is already over capacity. It's we're nearing peak flu season. But it's already over capacity. How do you plan to deal with the patient overload and long wait times?
Well, by not funneling everyone into the hospital for primary care, for preventative care, BCNDP, and this is something that, again, I know experts within the healthcare system are excited about. I'm excited about, because I know these are things that are working in other communities and will definitely work in our community. We're looking at urgent care centers and how we can be, using a team-based approach to healthcare and using nurse practitioners, LPNs, wherever we can. So we're not relying as much on doctors within that system. And that is a wonderful way for people to get quality care in a preventative way in their own communities, and certainly looking at the possibility of that in West Kelowna. I know that there are services being offered by Interior Health out of the Acorn Centre. For me, it's really about assessing and working with the community to assess whether or not that's meeting the need, and then what we can do moving forward. But yeah, definitely an urgent care centers are a wonderful model that can be incredibly helpful to alleviate some of those pressures on those key hospitals. Okay.
So urban sprawl is impacting transit across Kelowna. How do you solve the lack of transportation issue?
Well, I think, and I spend a lot of time certainly talking with municipalities about this, and this is a really important issue, especially as we look to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and move towards, just a cleaner, greener economy in terms of how we're approaching these things. So from my point of view, I think it's key to be building a robust public transit system, to invest in those things wherever we possibly can. Certainly, there are times where we're going to be working to expand our corridors and looking at sort of realigning roadways, making investments in roadways where we need to. But we also know that induced demand means those roads are going to fill up with cars as quickly as we build them. So again, it's around thinking about maximizing our public transit system, how we're using those things, thinking about alternative ways of providing transportation, about moving bodies versus moving cars. That also is giving people options around bike lanes, right? And I do think that ride sharing plays a part in this, and possibly, ride hailing. We want to look at all those things and how they fit into the broader picture without creating a system where we just end up loading way more cars onto the road. Yeah.
Okay. Childcare in BC costs upwards of $1,000 a month. do you support universal childcare?
Well, yes, I do. I very strongly. And again, these things, we see the interconnected nature of all these issues, Liz. As we're talking about housing, you end up talking about healthcare, we talk about employment. All these things are interconnected. So if women aren't able to, women and in some cases certainly men, aren't able to get back into the workforce after having children, it not only robs us of that innovation that they may bring into whatever world they're going, it's also a situation where, and women are telling me this, they're feeling trapped within their homes. They're not able to bring in income, right? They want to be great parents, but they want that balance, right? And it's just really leaving people without options. So I think in our next budget, you're going to see a significant commitment to rolling out a universal childcare that's affordable and that will help people continue to sort of live beyond having a child and explore their career opportunities.
Okay. Student debt is averaging $25,000 or more. Some parties are looking to the European model of offering free tuition. What do you propose?
Well, as a PhD student, actually candidate, I'm just finishing my doctorate at UBCO, I certainly appreciate the significant cost of a tuition and what that looks like. I really like the completion bonus that the BC NDP are talking about for people completing post-secondary education programs, but I think we need to always be moving towards that. Education is key. It's key in employment. It's key in creating, connected, innovative people who have options within a really emerging tech sector and growing economies in British Columbia. I think that is something that is really important to explore. One thing that is wonderful that's happening right now is for former kids in care, we've waived tuition for post-secondary. We've seen a 20% increase in those young people accessing universities, and that is something that, I rarely can talk about this with almost feeling like tears come to my eyes, because this is exactly what we need to be doing, and it's brilliant. And so not only are we getting these wonderful young people a chance to get into university and to better their life that way, but we are also get that innovation that they bring to the table. Yeah.
Okay. ICBC and BC Hydro are two businesses run by the government. Do you think the BC government should be involved in business?
I'm going to use ICBC as an example. ICBC ran very well. It was incredibly profitable. I think the people of British Columbia appreciated the corporation, and they're essentially the owners of that corporation. I think that what we shouldn't be doing is voting on changes to be able to use our crown corporations as piggy banks. And that certainly was the case with the situation with ICBC. If the Liberal government at the time had not voted to be able to do that, and of course we have a candidate in this by-election who was at that table as a minister when that decision was made, we wouldn't be in this position right now, and we wouldn't be having this conversation about the viability of our crown corporations.
Okay, and so lastly, we've stopped the clock, but we'll give you 30 seconds or so.
Thank you so much.
This is your chance to tell voters what you want them to know.
I care about this community. I've been here working incredibly hard in this community. I just really want people to be open to change. I'm hearing on the doorsteps that people felt left behind. I promise that I will not leave anyone behind. I will be here working for everyone in my community, whether or not you chose to vote for me. I'm about good ideas, I'm about people, and I'm about making a community that works for everyone.
Okay, thanks very much for coming in, Shelley.
Thanks,
and for
Liz.
KelownaNow, I'm Liz.